We are in Proverbs chapter 8. We started verse 1 last week. We'll just read that verse briefly. And in chapter 8, we see once again wisdom personified, pictured as a woman. This woman that cries out to all and is everywhere. And everything wisdom has to give is good. Everything, and has value for all. As the book starts out, it is valuable to the young man, to the one who is young. It is valuable to the wise. It is valuable to everyone. Everyone can gain something from her. Everyone can. And here wisdom is personified again. This is chapter 8, wisdom personified. And wisdom's also going to discuss being at creation. Of wisdom is ancient. Wisdom is older than we are. That is, wisdom's older than mankind. Wisdom has been around for a while, for a long while. Now, we start, does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? Now, verse 2, on the heights beside the way, at the crossroads she takes her stand, beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portal she cries aloud. Now we're going to have a quote of what she's crying. But notice, wisdom is everywhere. Wisdom can be found. Wisdom is out and about every day and in the most obvious places, not hiding in some corner of a cave or in some canyon somewhere where you have to, or on top of a mountain where it's going to take you a lifetime to even try to find. Wisdom is everywhere. Notice, heights beside the way. What is that? Well, the way would be a roadway. What's the heights beside that? Well, it would be a place next to the roadway that's higher than the roadway. If you've ever been on certain very old roads where for many, many years they were unpaved, that through the years the roads get lower and lower than the land around them. And it kind of gets weird that you have a wall of earth on this side and a wall of earth on this side. And that would be a height, by the way. But that's not the only way to define that. That's nor the only way to think about that. This would be a place overlooking the road and crying out. But we also have at the crossroads. Now, at the crossroads, you're maximizing everything because it's not just one road, it's where two roads are actually meeting, and you're going to have more people flowing through there. And what naturally occurs at crossroads? What naturally occurs is people are going to, going through a place like that, they're going to need things. And therefore you have markets that will be set up at crossroads. And so a crossroad isn't just necessarily just an empty place where two roads cross. It can be where you have sellers that are there. You have a marketplace that has developed right there for the travelers going through. But the crossroads, people passing by, north, south, east, or west, wherever, they're going through. Beside the gates in front of the town, so all the traffic going in and out of town, wisdom is there. Wisdom is standing there. It's like every way you go, wisdom's going to be there. Wisdom's looking over the road, wisdom's at the crossroads, wisdom's at the front of the gates. At the entrance of the portal, she cries out. It's saying the same thing in that wisdom is all there. Now, what is she saying? To you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. And verse 12, wisdom says, I dwell with prudence. And this also goes back to, we can look at chapter 1, verse 22. in this. And how long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? Well, here, simple ones, learn prudence. What is prudence? Prudence is having a clue. We'll just say that. It's having a clue of how you're supposed to behave. It's a clue of actually how to act like a civilized person. It's a clue of where knowing right from wrong, proper behavior from improper behavior. And I'm sure that you have seen children, some may be older than they should be, they do not know how to behave in public. They do not know how to be civilized. They do not know what proper behavior is because they've never been taught. It was like a preacher I heard years ago, and I had to just laugh out loud when he said it. He was talking about this very subject of children not being disciplined. And he said, when was the last time you were at a checkout line in Walmart and there wasn't a child that didn't need some attention? When was the last time? Obviously, it had been constant with him. But here is the good news. Okay, O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. There's hope. You don't have to remain a fool. You don't have to remain simple. You can grow. And it's like we mentioned last week. A young fool is a catastrophe. But an old fool, that catastrophe didn't learn from all the catastrophe. And it's not, as we said, it's not cute anymore. You may put up with a little bit from someone who's young and give them a little bit of leeway there. But get up in some years, it's not cute. It really wasn't cute earlier, but now this is showing you have not matured. You have not developed as you're supposed to. You are a fool remaining a fool. And is there hope for you? Well, wisdom says there is, but you've got to do the changing. You have to have a change of heart in all of this and start learning some things and really obeying some things. Now, verse 6, hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. There's not anything wicked, perverse, twisted. There is nothing that wisdom gives that's going to be evil. Nothing. It's all going to be productive. Everything that is good for us, everything that's good for humanity will be spoken by wisdom. Everything it gives, it speaks, or she speaks, is good. For my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. And we're going to see more of this in verse 13, that everything that God hates, wisdom hates. And everything that God loves, wisdom loves. And wisdom, we're also going to see where wisdom rewards. Wisdom rewards you for following. But wisdom punishes nobody. Doesn't have to. She doesn't have to punish anybody. You'll be punished by your own consequences. It's going to come, and it's going to come tight. You keep ignoring wisdom, and wisdom doesn't have to do anything. What's the saying? Give enough man a rope, give enough rope, give enough rope to a man, and he'll hang himself. All right. Well, that's what, if wisdom is standing by saying, don't take the rope, you take the rope, and wisdom doesn't have to do a thing. Wisdom doesn't have to do a thing. But trying to persuade us, plead with us to do what is right. The truth uttered by wisdom. Verse 8, all the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands and right to those who find knowledge. So looking at verse 9, straight to the one who understands and right to the one who finds knowledge. That is to those on the outside of wisdom, those who refuse wisdom, it won't seem like there's any value to it at all. It won't seem that way at all. It will seem bothersome, or it will seem like to a disadvantage. I can't abuse people like I want to do. I can't cheat people like I want to do, and accept wisdom at the same time. Okay, and that would be someone who would see cheating people as a practical thing for themselves. It's the law of tooth and claw. And law of tooth and claw has no place for wisdom at all. It's just brute force and cleverness as what it is, and just getting what you want. But to the ones who have, one who has understanding, they see this as the right path. Now, one that's rejected any kind of understanding doesn't see it as a correct path at all. Now verse 10, take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. And that is right. And we're going to see the value of wisdom here in just a moment. That we've already stated that this book, the book of Proverbs, will mature anyone from where they are. It is of value to anyone wherever they happen to be. If it young and inexperienced and naive to someone who is older and has an extraordinary knowledge, extraordinary wisdom, everybody benefits. Everybody benefits. And everyone in society benefits. And society itself, culture, nations, they all benefit in wisdom. There's nothing to compare with her. All right? If you have, and we'll get to it in just a second, if you have a wicked king, doesn't care a thing about justice, if you have wicked rulers and wicked judges and wickedness all the way through, what amount of money is going to help? None. None. What amount of gold is going to help? None. Gold will mean nothing. It cannot change people's hearts. You can buy them off. They may leave you alone for a while anyway, but you haven't changed. You haven't changed the wickedness. You haven't changed a tyrant. You haven't done any of those things. Now, and we'll get to there in just a second. Verse 12, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. There's prudence, knowledge, discretion, all with wisdom. All with her. Notice this, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Now, we've already seen that earlier in places like chapter 2, verse 5 and 8, 5 to 8. But notice, pride and arrogance and the evil way and perverted speech I hate. This is a hatred that wisdom has in all of this. And we can go back to chapter 6 and verse 16. There are 6 things that the Lord hates. 7 are abomination to Him. And we look at this and we see that you have those haughty eyes or a proud look. Well, there we have a pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. Now, we continue in chapter 8, verse 14. I have counsel and sound wisdom. Always. You don't have to go to any other source. Go directly to wisdom. And so we have to ask, Okay, well, where do we do that? All right, it's not as though wisdom is an actual woman that we can see in the marketplaces, or that we can see in the crossroads. It's not as though we can do that. Tell me, where people are free, truly free, where there aren't powers trying to rid God out of people's lives, out of their citizens' lives. Where people are free, can you not find the Bible? Because the Bible's all over the world. The Bible has been translated into I don't know how many languages and continuing to be translated. Okay? It's only where you have tyrants, it's only where you have very, very wicked governments where it's forbidden. And even in places like China, they have the Bible in China in Chinese. They have it there. The Chinese government hasn't gotten rid of the Bible. Now, they don't want you practicing any kind of religion they don't have control over. That's what they don't like about religion in general, or religion that they don't control. Or they want absolute control over their citizens. But here, I have counsel in wisdom, I have insight, I have strength. Where do we get it? You get it from places like Proverbs, but not just limited Proverbs. You have the Word of God given. The Word of God can be found everywhere. And for someone, especially living in this country or in any developed country, saying they had no access to it, yeah, you did. It was there. You just didn't want it. It was there. Was it in the marketplaces? Yeah, it was in the marketplaces. Yeah, you could find it there. Was it found in places where you could easily have gotten it? Yeah, you can get it online. It's everywhere. Now, here we come to that value that goes all the way to the very top of a nation. By me, kings reign and rulers decree what is just. Here's some news for you. When you have a fool that's a king, he will never rule justly. Never. He's not going to do it. He doesn't know how, nor does he want it. A fool never can. But kings reign and rulers decree what is just. By me, princes rule and nobles, all who govern justly. All right? So, for there to be any kind of real justice, there must be wisdom at the top. Righteousness at the top. There must be. All right? Now, I realize that you can have someone who is not a member of the church, but they still have a compassion for righteousness. They still show some wisdom and an appreciation for wisdom. They still make a home for righteousness. They will protect righteousness because they appreciate it. We can see that in places such as Corinth in Acts chapter 18, where Christ says, I have many people in this city. Well, Paul would have known who was converted. He would have known, he would have been able to name them by name who was converted. Who was Jesus talking about? He was talking about that there were in fact rulers there who they allowed righteousness to be engendered. They allowed righteousness to grow. They're going to protect the innocent and will recognize when someone presented to them is innocent and someone who has drugged them into the courts is not so. This is a wicked person. But wisdom must be found in the rulers and an appreciation for wisdom, or there A fool, like I said, a fool will never rule in any sort of right way. Never. Now, verse 17. I love those who love me. So wisdom will grant reward. We'll see this. And what does it mean to love wisdom? And those who seek me diligently will find me. So it means seeking wisdom diligently and keeping it. It's not enough, like some scholar might be, of where reading ancient words and reading things from the text of the Bible, and it's nothing more than to them other than just scholarly research. Nothing more than that. Just an intellectual enterprise, and nothing more than that. They're not taking it in. And the scribes are very guilty of doing that in the first century, as were the Pharisees. Pharisees could have been called scholarly, I'm sure. For the most part, I think they could have been called scholarly. Among the Sadducees, I don't think you could call them scholarly in the least. But nevertheless, both of them were wrong. They had brought in things and tossed things according to their likes and dislikes. Now, verse 17 again. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. So that is an assurance. That's a promise. What does Jesus say about those who ask, seek, knock? Well, you ask, it'll be answered. You seek, you find. Knock, it'll be open. That's an assurance. Assurance given here in wisdom, assurance given by Christ. And it's given to all. Like with wisdom isn't just saying this for the wise only. This is for the scoffer and the fool and the simpleton. This is for everybody. Seek me. Diligently find me. You will find me. Verse 18. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. Notice, riches, honor, wealth, righteousness. But righteousness is there. So someone who says, yeah, I want the riches, I want the honor, I want the wealth, but I don't want the righteousness. Well, wisdom's not going to play that game. Wisdom's not going to go along with that at all. But as we have stated before, I think, yeah, it was in this class. It's been I do believe it's been a few weeks now. But this is not what some would call the health and wealth gospel. That if you are obedient to God, God's going to take care of you. Now, He's not going to make you the most wealthiest person on the street or in town. He's not going to do that. That's not His promise. His promise is to take care of you. I had an argument with the fella, and we went round and round and round, and finally I figured out the man was insane. But he truly believed that only that the wealthiest people on earth were the most righteous on earth. Okay? And now he was Roman Catholic, and he believed, which would mean like Vatican City would be the most wealthiest nation on the planet, followed by Italy. They are separate nations, by the way. Followed by Italy. Italy would be, but is it? And you should be able to find where other Catholic nations or largely Catholic nations would be overwhelmingly more wealthy than anybody else. Okay, and that would also mean that your criminals, your crooks, your bad guys would be the poorest people on the earth. All right? Now with him, it wasn't clicking. And it took me way too long to figure out, he's a little bit crazy, this guy. He's not listening. He doesn't believe. You can point something out to him, and it was like, okay, never, that means something completely different. No, it doesn't. Just read it. What does it say? No, it means something completely different. But anyway, there is always the promise. You seek God, you will find God. You seek wisdom, you will find wisdom. You'll find wisdom with God, is what you're going to do. And that God will take care of you. But understand, the level of your wealth is never going to be like a gauge showing the level of your righteousness. It does not. God will take care of you. Here, a few days ago, in talking that of someone who did not believe God was taking care of them. Did not believe it. And I said, well, you're just not paying attention. All right? Do you have shelter? Is there a roof over your head? Well, sort of. Well, of course there is. Did you sleep in a bed last night? Yeah, but it's hard. Okay, well, now you're whining. All right? Do you have a warmth in the winter? No, it gets cold in the winter. Well, it gets cold for everybody in the winter. What would it look like? What would it look like for God to take care of you? What would that even look like? Do you have to have this massive mansion that's your ideal of cool in the summer and your idea of warm in the winter, or that the weather must be absolutely ideal to where you don't need any of that? What does it even look like? And you just need to understand your life really, you're being taken care of. You're being taken care of by God. You just haven't really realized it yet. Open your eyes to it. Open your eyes. Now, she is saying, riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. Verse 19, my fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, and filling their treasuries. But this is not the health and wealth gospel of like I was saying, I've seen more than one make the same sort of claim. Some televangelist trying to make the same kind of claim of, I have a Learjet because I'm righteous. I have a fleet of Rolls because I'm righteous. I have the Italian designer shoes because I'm righteous. I have all these things, and it can all be yours. It's like an investment. That's the way they are preaching it. It's like an investment. If you give $10, expect God to give you 100. If you give 100, expect God to give you 1,000. If you give 1,000, expect Him to give you 10,000. Okay, it's this investment that there is always the immediate payoff, and it's always not in blessings of a wide variety. It's always in cash. It's always in wealth. That's what he gives. But that is false. That's flawed in all of this. That one can have treasuries and it's in friends. One can have treasuries and it's in happiness. Because money doesn't get you real friends, nor does it get you happiness. I can get you some niceties and a few thrills, no doubt, but there's nothing about it that lingers. Nothing at all. There's things in this life that are far greater and deeper than just physical wealth. Much more so. Okay, now notice, wisdom says that she walks in the way of righteousness, that also in those paths of justice. That is why you can have kings and princes and rulers showing justice, that there truly is justice to be found. Now, we come to this next section. This next section really is an extraordinary thing, because this shows how ancient wisdom is. Wisdom was around before the earth was created. And I think that though poetically wisdom is says, I was set up or I was brought up, that wisdom, I think that we can pretty well understand, is from eternity. That as far as we find God, we find wisdom. All right? And God is from eternity, therefore wisdom is from eternity. God had no beginning, wisdom had no beginning. Wisdom has always been with God. God has always been wise. But when it comes to setting wise ways for mankind, those had to be set up before we were created. They had to be. Is that from eternity as well? Yeah. God, from eternity, knows precisely what He's going to do, when He's going to do it, how He's going to do it. He knows it all. Nothing's done by happenstance with Him. He knows precisely what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. He knows it all from eternity to eternity. He has that. He's, as we have said before, He's not just everywhere, He's every when. And what is needed on this earth was founded way before this earth began. Now, verse 22. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of His work, the first of His acts of old. Ages ago I was set up. Now we could take that literally, but I tend to think that this is, in poetic speech, that this is from everlasting. But if we're going to say that, take this literally, I think that we would have to take it as it being established for mankind. But personally, I think this is poetic. Ages ago I was set up, at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there was no depth, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water. So before this world began, wisdom was. Before mankind was listening to the words of the serpent, wisdom was already there. Before the sixth day of where Adam and Eve were created, wisdom was already there. Verse 25, before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills I was brought forth, before He had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world. The first of the dust of the world. What is that? That there is nothing. There is no world. There's not so much as a speck of dust that one can say everything's going to be built off that speck of dust. Before any of that occurred, before you have the first atom that would make up all the elements of this created realm, before any of that, you have wisdom. Wisdom was here. Now, we come to verse 27. When He established the heavens, I was there. And when He drew a circle on the face of the deep. Okay. Now, what did the ancients know about this? I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I don't know what Solomon may have known. But what was just described, by and large, according to popular sentiment, the ancients could not have known there was a circle on the face of the earth, on the face of the waters, on the face of the deep. They couldn't have known such things. Did Solomon know it? I don't know. Did God know it? Yes, obviously He did know. What is the circle on the face of the deep? Well, one can think immediately, well, that's the circle of the earth, but actually it's not. I don't take it that way. The circle, what's the face of the deep? Well, that's the surface. That's the surface that can be seen. It's the top of the deep. That would be the face of the deep. What's the circle on the face of the deep? Well, that would be currents that are there, currents that are in the oceans themselves. And Psalm 8 mentions the paths of the sea, but this is also talking about it as well, just in a different way of saying it. All right. The oceans on the northern hemisphere, we're northern hemisphere, so the oceans on the northern hemisphere, as far as Atlantic and Pacific. Now, I'm not talking about the Arctic, and I'm not going to talk about the Antarctic either. But according to, well, with the oceans on the north, they turn clockwise. That was probably counterclockwise to you. Okay, so they turn clockwise, going from South America, that of around where the equator is, Central America, coming on up to the eastern side of the U.S., and then going off and actually warming up the western side of Europe, and even affecting places like Iceland, of where a place like Reykjavik in Iceland is not near as cold, not by a great deal, not near as cold as if you go directly west of there to Greenland. Greenland, northern Canada are blocks of ice because it doesn't warm them. It comes over to the east and warms. All right, and then goes down the coast of Africa and then back off to where we started, across the Atlantic and back to Central America again. Wisdom describes in creation something we don't get in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1 is giving us basically the broader picture of what God did and what He created on each day. And when it came to separating day 2, separation of land and with the oceans in the middle, He doesn't, or between them, He doesn't talk about drawing a circle on the deep. But now we get it, and wisdom is telling us about this, and that wisdom was in fact there when this happened. Okay, we have come to the end of our time this morning. We'll continue with wisdom describing itself there in Genesis and before Genesis. Of it existing before we even get to Genesis chapter 1 and the events of Genesis chapter 1. And so I want to thank everybody for being with us this morning, and hopefully we'll continue next week.